morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the country. If you're on the West Coast or the East Coast, hope everyone had a great long weekend. I did. The weather was perfect. Anyway, before I get started, I just want you to think and make sure you get the most out of this presentation today. If you already haven't, think about how you can make the most out of this. The topic is managing growth. What would be some questions you have for me today? And a little bit about the series and myself. I'm Gary Mitchell. I'm your host, a strategic business coach. Been working with lawyers since 2005. I don't know about you, but whenever I've signed up for not a water cooler, but a podcast or seminar, webinar, and I'm excited, I want to learn, and I'm putting some valuable time aside to go on and participate. And we're 20 minutes in, and the presenter is still talking about themselves. And as it goes on and on and on, it becomes clear that it's purely a sales pitch. I don't know about you, but that really ticks me off. Well, folks, we don't operate that way. This is not all about me, and it's definitely not a sales pitch. If you want to know more about me, my contact information is at the end of the presentation. This is number 4 in our water cooler law series of podcasts. I'd like to thank Equa Marketing for sponsoring them. As you can see from the slide, the upcoming topics are there. If you were not able to attend live, you see the topics that we've already covered. Today's topic is how to manage growth. I would also like to thank Lila for being my facilitator and helping me facilitate this podcast for you today. So again, these podcasts go live every first Tuesday of the month for the rest of 2019, starting at 12 p.m. Now, of all the challenges you will face in business for yourself or leading a law firm, managing your growth is the best one to have. It means you have and are enjoying some level of success and you're moving forward in the life cycle of any business. And a law firm is not immune. Different challenges are faced at different stages of the business. If you're at the stage of having to manage your growth, congratulations. But let's face it, it doesn't get easier, it gets different. There's more of everything to manage. More people, more clients, more cash flow issues, and on and on. It can be daunting and delirious at some times. Almost all of what I'm going to share with you today is about the managing growth revolves around HR and your people. After all, what is a law firm without people? Good lawyers, good staff, and good clients. And that has been and continues to be the area of my experience and expertise as a coach. When you think about it, your people are involved in everything, from the client service, to marketing, business development, internal relationships, leadership, and so on. I think you get my point. And I think the people part is the hardest part to figure out and manage, frankly. So here's what we're going to cover today. HR, when to hire, who to hire, getting them in the right roles, sometimes outgrowing initial or startup staff, workflow and communications, cash flow, and your leadership. So when to hire. And this is a common challenge no matter where you are in the scheme of things, whether you are a solo practice going to a small firm, whether you already are a small firm, whether you're a large firm. Your partner building your own team or managing partner. My rule of thumb is that when you have consistently been at 60% of your own workload capacity with clients and files, it's time to start looking for help. Why I say that is because at some point you will need to invest your time in onboarding and getting anyone new on your team up to speed. If you have hit capacity, you won't have the time to do that, and you will forever be on the treadmill. Now, in the smaller firms, I know fear has a lot to do with it. Fear that it will cost you money. Fear that your success is not sustainable. And if you hire someone, you could be throwing money out the window. I see it a lot. I get it. I understand. But let's look at my formula a little closer. If you start looking by the time you're consistently running at 60% capacity, that gives you the time to find the right people. And it takes time, sometimes a lot of time. Then by the time you reach 80% capacity, you will have the time to train them and get them to the level you want before you hit 100% capacity. Don't forget, when you're growing and you're in a leadership role, you've got your own client work, but then you've got your leadership work as well. And you don't want to be going over 100% capacity consistently. It happens, but you don't want to be doing it all the time. What's the alternative? Either you continue to overwork yourself and others and burn out, or you operate from fear and never grow. And here's an even more important point. I've seen so many professionals not follow this formula for fear of bringing people on and it costing them money that they end up referring so much business out. They're so fearful of spending money to get help that they're leaving money on the table by having to refer the work out. They don't see the forest for the trees. It doesn't make sense. Are you growing a business or going to be solo? And I'm not judging, it's your choice. That's up to you. But if you're in this to grow something, why refer all that work out when you could simply hire people to help you and grow? More profits being left on the table. Don't be one of those people. Don't let fear guide your decisions. Now, if you're growing a small or even larger firm, this formula is also relevant. But when you have many more people to consider, it can become even more crucial. I see time and time again with the larger firms where the firm leaders are held back, perhaps from their CFO or COO. I call them the bean counters, because they understand one thing, and that's cash flow. I get that. But this can cause a situation where your hiring is sometimes too late. Too late in that your team is already overworked and burnt out, and you lose some of them, making matters worse. Not to mention the fact that your clients are suffering and you lose them too. It's a complete lose-lose scenario. I encourage you to always be proactive when growing your team. They're your assets. It's your product. Your people are your product. And at the end of the day, it's really an investment. I can't stress that enough. I've seen far too many people stagnate and not grow for fear of putting the money into the business, into their people. That's when to hire, who to hire. One of my favorite books of all time, and I do read a lot of books on business and entrepreneurship and all that, it's written by Jim Collins. And the book is called Good to Great. And in it, one of the favorite things I remember from the book, and he's talking about this as the company is growing, is get the right people on the bus. Well, I can't help but put a bus picture up here. It makes so much sense. You're not hiring just for the sake of hiring. So I'm not saying grow, bring people on, just hire, hire, hire. No, you want to, and don't get fixated on job titles. You want to take a look at your role and the people around you. What's most important? What's most valuable? What's missing? You're building a team here. It's like putting a puzzle together. So you look at the duties and responsibilities, the talents of the lawyers and the staff, and figure out, okay, we've got this. What else do we need? How can we bring people on to fill these roles, to fill in the puzzle, getting the right people on the bus. Not only will this save you money down the road, because when you think about it, you're charging out, you're either the owner of the firm or you're a managing partner, you're quite possibly the most valuable asset of the firm, and you're still doing things that could be easily delegated out to other people. Other people that you could be paying a lot less than what you're charging for your time. You're building a small firm, working at a larger firm, building your team, or you're a managing partner, leading your team. It's all relevant. Also consider the tasks that you don't like doing. Get them off your desk. The tasks that perhaps you're not the most adept at. Get them off your desk. Build your team around your own strengths and weaknesses, giving you the freedom to focus on your strengths and plug the holes left by your weaknesses and the rest of your team. Get the right people on the bus. Then, and this also goes to what Jim Collins says, which I love, get them in the right seats. So you got the right people, now you want to get them in the right roles. And this is about taking a look at everyone's role, starting from yours, right? Making sure everyone on your team is in the right place within your firm, doing the most valuable tasks that support you, your clients, and the firm goals. Remember I said to take a look at your role. I always say it starts at the top. Let's take the same approach now with everyone else on your team. Think about this. Should a lawyer be doing the work that a paralegal could be? That doesn't sound efficient to me. Should a paralegal be doing work that an assistant could be doing? That doesn't sound efficient to me. You see my point. I had the pleasure of working with a law clerk years ago on business development. The managing partner pointed out that he was concerned about her docketing. And I was working with her, and I knew she wasn't lazy. That's not the issue. The issue was, once we got in there and looked at what she was doing day to day, is that she was not doing 80 or 90% of her billable work. She was doing a lot of admin tasks that could easily be passed down to an admin assistant. Well, over the course of the year, she increased her docketing by 20%. That's what I'm talking about. Get people in the right seats. Make sure they're doing the right tasks that make the most sense for the firm, profitability, but also for the clients. Starting from the top, make sure everyone is in the right seat. Now, sometimes as you're growing, especially early stages, you'll notice this. I'd say first 5, 6 years. You might realize that your initial staff that you hired on from the beginning no longer really serve your long-term needs. I've got a couple of examples to share with you what I mean specifically. The first one comes from a boutique firm in Toronto, currently at 9 lawyers. It's about 6 years old, very successful, I'd say, 9 lawyers in 6 years from one. To give you some context, 3 of those lawyers have just been joining the firm in the past 5 months, so it's growing. Here's the thing about what I mean about growing your staff. This particular managing partner has a challenge that, and I'm going to get into templates, processes a little bit later on, but he's been making some changes. He's thinking forward and he's growing, right? We've instituted some policies, procedures, templates, things like that to standardize the service across all lawyers in the firm. And he's noticed that 2 of his senior partners have become complacent, demanding, and they constantly push back at change. I don't know how he does it. I mean, it's frustrating for me out on the West Coast to be working with him by phone, listening to. I could not be in the office every day dealing with that pushback. The change I'm talking about with this firm will be good for everyone, including them, but they don't see it. It's different and new, and they're not used to it. He even refers to them as the oldest bunch of millennials he's ever seen. And you know what I mean by that? Typically, People that are stuck and they don't like change typically are older, not younger. But these are millennials that don't like any change or movement. If you have staff that are complacent and not open to innovation and change, they will hold you back from growth. Once you get to a certain stage in your law firm's life, you have to have people that can change and adapt as the firm grows. Here's another example. This is a 2-lawyer firm, so an owner and an associate lawyer. And this particular managing partner has always prided herself in really going above and beyond for her people, for her staff. And frankly, I'm aligned with her integrity. I believe it. But this is very typical in early startup businesses, not just law firms, where we have an idealistic view that other people are going to step up as much as we are, and they're going to care as much as we are. And so she's growing, and she's starting to realize some issues. One of her senior paralegals that she inherited from another practice she bought out hasn't been profitable in some time. And out of loyalty, she, the managing partner, has kept her on. That's a difficult situation. She has another paralegal that has totally become too complacent and comfortable and pushes back at almost anything, and sometimes to the point of being rude. She started out great, but lately her attitude has shifted for the worse. Here's the thing. Sometimes your goals and where you want to take your firm will outgrow your staff. That's the problem. Now, let's take a look at the solutions. And there's two main solutions here, and I put them up at the same time because they go hand in hand. And I believe the best approach here is that you do them at the same time. So I'll talk hiring first. The first part of the solution is, as I've mentioned before, is when you're in growth mode, you must always have your eyes open for new talent, both staff and lawyers. There's no law that says you have to hire everyone that sends you a resume. But by gathering the information, it's building a safety net for you, and we'll talk about that in the second part. But without going overboard, keeping your eye on the numbers, be prepared to hire on new people when you find them to be outstanding. Again, your business is about talent. Your talent is the product. The talent serves your clients. You can't have clients without your talent. Now, the templates and systems. If you don't have policies and procedures already firmly in place, I believe you should get that going right now. What's going to happen is, as you standardize the service, your principles, your mission, how you want to serve your clients, the way each practice is, each file is delivered, and all of that, it's helping you scale up. It's helping you it's going to help you put the systems in place when you bring on new people. But the funny thing here is that when you go through these processes, building these processes and policies and manuals and templates, the staff will push back on these changes, will become so obvious to you. And it happens. It's happened in both these two examples. It's because it's now not loosey-goosey. There's a format. We're getting serious. You're growing your firm. So it may seem chicken and egg, but carefully managed, this will dramatically reduce your stress and help you manage your growth. So always keep an eye out for new talent, but be building the systems, the processes, procedures, so you're able to scale up, bring new people on, and grow. Questions?
Yes, I have one. You're talking about making sure you have the right people in the right seats. Now, for example, say you have several paralegals, and how do you find out who is best set up for what? Like maybe one prefers doing tax-related law, another prefers doing family law. How would you go about identifying each one's strengths and weaknesses to make sure that everybody is doing the jobs that they like the best so that you'll get the most production out of them?
Okay, that's a very good question. I have a couple things to address there, especially say you bring in a new paralegal. Okay, I've been doing a lot of onboarding work with different firms on this in this area. Instead of waiting for 6 months, you do your first review at 1 month. So you're gauging. The lawyers are involved, the office manager is involved, if depending on the management, they're all involved, and so you get them early and you find out. But most importantly, you sit down and ask them, have they figured out, do they have an interest? Is there a specific practice area where they are aligned with or they're attracted to? They may or may not know that question depending on how early they are on their career. The second thing is, when you're doing these reviews, and it's another mistake I see all the time. People that do yearly reviews, not good enough. If you're bringing someone new on board, you do a 1 month review. You do a 3-month review, and you do a 6-month review. After that, it's every 6 months. So your people that have been with you, on after 6 months, they're reviewed every 6 months. This gives both the paralegal, the lawyer, and management the opportunity to address any issues, deal with them, and move on. So it's communication, it's fair to the employee, and it's great for the firm. Did that answer that?
Yes, but it gave me a follow-up question.
Okay.
Think about from the reverse. Somebody that's been with your firm for, say, 6 years. They've always worked on tax. They love it, but they're getting burnt out. How do you encourage them to communicate that they need something fresh, that they need to be able to do something different to re-energize?
Again, I would take care of that first in a one-on-one, but if not, definitely at a review. And in the questions you ask them ahead of the review to fill out, how satisfied are you in your role? Is there anything you'd like to change? It all comes down to communication and communicating with your employees and being in touch with them. And I'll talk about communication. Actually, it's the next section, ironically. And I find that it's really lacking. And it's not just law firms. It's in business and in life that communication is so underrated. So why don't we actually go into that next section, because that's an excellent segue.
Okay.
The next thing I want to talk about this as you grow is looking at how teams work and how they communicate and the challenge. This is really interesting because I'm working with an office manager. I'm coaching the office manager. She's a new office manager, and she's, oh my God, she's so, this managing partner is so fortunate to have her. She's got great instincts, natural instincts, and she acts on them. She's a true leader, and it's a pleasure working with her. And that's my role, is helping to develop her leadership skills. So working with her, while she was describing her approach to follow-up staff and lawyers on file work, it became obvious to me that the paras and lawyers weren't communicating often or effectively with each other. Very, very common. And I find the communication to be one of the most underrated and least focused on in business and in life. And I'm not kidding on that. So, one solution. I suggested to the managing partner that we introduce a new firm-wide policy of regular weekly file review meetings with each team. So the para and the lawyer take about 30 minutes to sit down and review the files in play. What are next steps? What's the top priority? What has to be done right away and what can wait? I suggest this take place either Wednesday or Thursday in the morning, so there's time in the week left before Friday afternoon to get the work done and the files out before the end of the week. And why I say that, because it's the typical thing that you would do this on a Friday. Well, there's not much you can do with only a few hours left in the week. So doing the file review meetings every Wednesday. Now, in a very short period of time, this has proven very successful in moving the files forward. And this is all related, it actually goes into, I'm skipping ahead, but we'll come back to it. This will relate to cash flow down the road. Here's the thing, it's great to have a heavy file load, but if the files aren't moving forward, in a lot of cases, that means stalled cash flow. And the more you grow, the more you're exposed to expenditures, outlays, and salaries if your files aren't moving forward. But most importantly, the feedback from the lawyer, positive. From the para, positive. From the office manager, positive. From the managing partner, positive. Everybody's happy with this new format. Now, this another client, that's in a smaller firm, okay? And that's in a team of a lawyer and a para. Here's another example of using this strategy. I have a partner at a national firm, and he's at the point where he's got a team. He's got another lawyer on his team, at least one. I think they're hiring another one. He's got 2 paras and an assistant. And we introduced this to him, and he's taking them out for coffee. So they won't sit down in the office, they'll go out for coffee once a week, and they will discuss what's going on, what are the priorities, who's doing what, who's waiting for what from who, and basically communicate with each other. People rely far too much on email and text. Email and text are great for short things, but sometimes the only way to move things forward is face to face. And if you get in there and you're dedicated and keep it to 30 minutes, you'll get great results. This partner has experienced a dramatic increase in productivity, client satisfaction, and team engagement. Now, the first example I gave you, right, of the para and the lawyer working together, was with a firm that works on contingency. And so that leads me into my next section, being cash flow. When you're operating a practice or a firm on a contingency basis, your attention to cash flow must be accurate and bang on. Well, you can assign the back end and numbers to your bookkeepers. You need to focus on making sure the files are moving. You, meaning the leading lawyer, the owner of the firm, the managing partner, wherever you are in the scheme of things in your firm when you're leading it. Now, it's great to have a large file load, but if you're not moving, it puts you in a very vulnerable position. When you grow, this is something that needs even more attention as you have increased obligations, expenditures, salaries, and so on. Your team needs to know and understand this part of the business. They get paid every 2 weeks, no matter what, but the firm only gets paid if and when a case gets settled. Sometimes those cases take a long time to get settled. I advise this to be communicated regularly and informally so they understand fully what this means. One client example here is this client has monthly lawyer lunches. This is exactly the kind of topic that can be brought up and reminded of the lawyers. Sometimes the lawyers want to learn more about the business side. That's the business side, right? So you get the right people on board, you get the right people in their seats, you create the systems and templates and procedures, you get people talking to each other and communicating and meeting with each other regularly. This helps you grow. And before I get into leadership, do we have any questions on that second section?
No questions from me.
Okay. Well, it all comes down to leadership, actually. Whether you're solo and you're growing into a firm, you're leading. You're leading a small firm, you're leading. If you're managing partner of a national firm, you're leading. If you are a partner leading your team, you're leading. A practice group leader, you're leading. Leadership is, again, like communication, I believe, one of the most underestimated, undervalued segments in the business of law, and it's critical to your growth. Successful leadership requires skill to formulate and articulate a shared vision for the firm. Lead the fight for constructive organizational change. empower and develop lawyers and support personnel, develop and foster an effective management team, develop problem solving and multiple options thinking skills, make tough decisions, establish both firm goals and performance goals for all lawyers and support personnel. I'm running out of breath here. Seek input from others while coaching and developing others, confront and deal directly with internal and external client conflict and communications problems. Woo! If you are a managing partner or owner of a law firm, you know what a tug of war this is. That's a lot to take on. And in most cases, you have your own client files to work on as well. The good news is that skills can be learned. Ongoing leadership training and coaching is important. It is not part of a legal degree, but it determines the degree of a law firm's success. To review, of all the challenges you face in business, growth is the best one to have, but it's still a challenge. Look at HR, when to hire, 60, 80, 100 rule. Who to hire, the best people for the roles you need most. Getting them in the right seats or roles, and how to deal with outgrowing your staff. There's teams and communication, get them together and talk to each other. Cash flow. Keep an eye on it and educate your staff about how the business works and the importance of moving files forward. And finally, your leadership. It will make all the difference in the world. Any final questions?
Nothing from me.
Right. Well, thank you again, Equa Marketing, for sponsoring this series. Again, I remind you of the upcoming podcasts and the fact that you can go to the YouTube channel to listen and review these podcasts at any convenient time. My name is Gary Mitchell. I want to thank you for your time. If you'd like to take a deeper dive, I offer a 30-minute consultation where we can chat about you, where you're at, where you want to get to, how we can get there together. Thank you very much and have an outstanding day.